everyone. I'm Linda Nickell, and welcome to the Happiness Hour. My guest tonight is Cheyenne Morris. Cheyenne is a family lifestyle and brand photographer with a deep passion for capturing what matters most: your people, your connections, your story, and the unique place you hold in this world. Whether she's photographing a family, a personal brand, or a fleeting in between moment, she approaches each session with intention, focused on preserving not just how things look, but how they feel. At the heart of her work is a belief that photography is more than images. It's legacy. It's about honoring what you bring to your family and the world and creating something that will resonate for generations to come. You can connect with her through her website at CheyenneMorrisPhotography.com. And if you're on Instagram, look for her at Cheyenne underscore Morris underscore photography. And I'll link those in the show notes. In her presentation, Photographing Families in an Authentic Way, Cheyenne will share how photographers can guide families in a way that feels relaxed and genuine. She'll talk about simple ways to get kids to cooperate without pressure, posing techniques that don't look stiff, and how to confidently direct parents, and prompts that create real connection instead of forced smiles. With that, I want to welcome you to the Happiness Hour, Cheyenne.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited, albeit maybe a little nervous.
That's
So, so I encourage anybody who has a question to interrupt me. I will not be mad about it. I will actually love it. And Linda, if anybody has anything in the chat, if you don't mind just
okay.
letting me
I'm
know.
gonna watch the yes. I'm gonna typically how it works is that they'll put their questions in the chat. I'll interrupt you if it's something very specific you're talking about or a photo you've got up on the screen so that you don't have to go backwards. But if it's something general, I'm gonna hold those so that we don't break your train of thought. So before you get started, I threw out what I want to say about somebody. Is there something I missed? And y'all, this is how I know Cheyenne. She is a local photographer to the Georgetown area. She's in Austin. She's Central Texas. But I met her, I think 2 years ago in a flyby, like, oh, hi, I'm Linda. And then we went to our respective groups that we were visiting with. But this year, the Texas Photography Festival, third Saturday of March every year. Um, I asked if I could, okay, can I organize the photo walks? And we usually have two, one in the morning, one in the afternoon. And Cheyenne has been invited the last 2 years prior to do them. And I knew that I was going to ask her. I didn't know her, but I was like, okay, you're the only person that is coming back because to do this. And so she was one of the photo walks in the morning, and she comes with a couple of models. It is one of the most popular photo walks that we do. And that's why we just had to bring the models back. It wasn't just, it was so funny because I always associate, oh, the guys are going to be out there with the cameras. Not just guys. So many women are like, I want to learn how to work with people to pose. And that was just really a really good intro for those people that are brand new working with other people. And these models came and they were so professional and just had the patience of just they were just so nice. So thank you for doing that. And then since I had her on the hook, it's like, hey, I do this thing called a happiness hour. Would you want to do this? And she, of course, she's very generous with her time. So she is here tonight. So did I miss anything in your intro? I don't know what else you do other than like I said, I kind of know you in passing, and I spent a little bit of time on your website, and you're a busy lady.
Yeah, I am. That was a very comprehensive introduction, and
Okay.
I have no notes. I mean, that was perfect.
Okay. Okay, good. All right. All right. With that, I'll let you get started, and the floor is
Okay.
basically yours. Yeah.
So, like Linda said, today we're going to talk about photographing families in a way that feels natural. Because a lot of times when you're photographing families, there's really nothing natural about having a camera in your face. So we're going to talk about how we can make it feel the most natural. All right. And like I said, if there's any questions, feel free to interrupt. But just a little bit about me. My degree is actually in biology. I am completely self-taught with photography. Um, Complete opposite end of the spectrum. Like we've got science over here, we've got arts over here, and I've been on both ends. So before I was a photographer, I used to be a middle school teacher. I have two little girls, which is what got me started in photography in the first place. As a young mom, I wanted to capture just all of their childhood. So I got a camera and I taught myself. And then classic story of other friends want to start have you take pictures of their family. So it kind of ended up ended up that way. I did start family photography in 2019 in the Dallas area, and then we moved to Austin in late 2020. And then I started photographing brands about 3 years ago, but families will just always have a place in my heart. It's so special to me. I love that you can capture a season of life in photos. So that's why families are such a special place for me. I know you guys have dropped in the chat already, kind of where you're all from. I wanted to pull that up real quick. We have, let's see. Let me see what people were saying. Where's the chat here? I don't know where the chat went.
Oh, it's okay. It's yeah, they're
Everybody's kind of dropping where
yeah.
they're from. I think we talked
Yeah,
about
yeah,
that
yeah.
kind of before we got started. So, um, thank you. It sounds like a lot of you guys are used to birds, but hopefully this will help you photograph any family members or any friends that want you to take photos for them. So let's go ahead and just kind of dive right in. One of, I think, the biggest misconceptions about family photography is that people think that natural, like you see these families and you're like, oh, that's such an, they're just naturals in front of the camera. No, that doesn't, natural photos do not just happen. In reality, photographers are the ones who are practicing creating the conditions for these natural moments to occur. It doesn't just happen. Um, so families might think that they want perfect photos, but what they really want is connection. And perfect photos are not what makes a photo beautiful. And I think as photographers, we can agree on that. Unless it's birds, there is such a thing as like a perfect photo of a bird. I will agree with that. Okay, so why does this even matter? It matters because families don't want a perfect photo. They want that connection. They want to look back in 20 years and remember what it was like to have little arms hugging them around the neck. They want to remember what it was like when, you know how little toddlers, when they like whisper in your ear, but it just feels like hot air. Like a photo of that is going to bring them back to that moment and what that was like for them. Um, Parents want to remember like chubby wrist rolls and like the dimples that for their knuckles. They want to remember the freckles on their face, how they scrunch their nose when they smile, all of these things. And it sounds like a lot of you are grandparents. So that's another thing for you to think about with portrait photography. Like, what are the details that matter? What are the details that are going to matter when your 10-year-old grandson is now 25? What are some of those things that you want to remember? All right. So before I even start photographing a family, um, I come with a very like flexible plan. And I'm going to talk about that plan in a second. But the first thing I do before anything else, before a session even starts, and this is like weeks before when somebody first books with me, is I send them a questionnaire. And this questionnaire is things like, what are your kids' names? What are their ages? Tell me a little bit about their temperament. Are they shy? Are they rambunctious? Are they shy at first and then they warm up? Is the toddler, is he a mama's boy? Does he only want mom to hold him? Questions like that. I want to know what kinds of things make them laugh. Um, do your kids like toilet humor? I mean, sometimes that can be a fan favorite. And my kids are 12 and 9 and they still love toilet humor. So, do they like peekaboo? Do they like fake sneezes? What are the kinds of things that's going to help me get kids' attentions? What are the things that are going to make them laugh? I want to know some of their interests. Like, do kids love trains? If I start talking about trains, is that going to build trust? Um, are they into Disney princesses? I have two girls, so I can talk about Disney princesses ad nauseum. But I want to know what they are interested in so that I can have that connection. And then I always want to know if there's anything in particular that they want captured. So those are things like, again, do the freckles on their little nose? Did they just lose their two front teeth, which is like my very favorite thing ever. And I always do photos of my kids when when they're missing their two front teeth because it's so cute. Um, Again, with the scrunched up nose, dimples for knuckles, all like in this photo, like how they suck their thumb, their little pigtails. What kinds of things do you want captured? So I always make sure that I have a spot for that on the questionnaire. And then another one is family dynamics. Um, you don't want to be caught in not knowing what certain family dynamics are, or like even or like special needs or anything like that. There was one time that I had a family and I had referred to the husband like I just assumed that was dad. And the boy was very adamant to let me know that that was not dad. That was his stepdad. And so that was like a big no-no on my part. So again, family dynamics, knowing that ahead of time is very important. So when I say have a flexible plan, I mean like come generally knowing what poses are crucial. Like we need to make sure we have a good photo of the whole family. We need to make sure we have a good photo of mom and her kids. We need to make sure we have a good photo of dad and the kids. We need a good photo of individual kids, siblings. So those are like my non-negotiables. How and in what order those happen is where you have to be flexible. So again, I have a general workflow. When I have a family, I will take photos where everyone is smiling first. While everyone is happy, we haven't hit meltdown status. Everyone is still pretty much in a good mood. So, but knowing information ahead of time from the questionnaire is going to give you a leg up because you're going to know what to do. Again, if they're happy, if they're nervous at first, you can kind of adapt. So that's going to be really important. Oh, and also if if you know that that this particular kid is going to be quiet and really reserved, then you may want to alter the what you do first. You may want to make sure that you're getting family photos all together first so that they're close to mom and dad. I'm not going to say, okay, we're going to do individual kids photos first and have them be by themselves. That's going to backfire. So again, have a general workflow. All right, next, let's go ahead and talk about why families can feel awkward in photos. Um, because most families don't show up feeling confident in front of a camera. So we're going to talk about a few pain points and how to overcome them. We're going to talk about maybe it's their first time getting photos taken. Maybe they're not used to being observed. Maybe they don't know what to do with their hands and their bodies. They might feel pressure for a session to go well. They don't know you well yet, and they may feel like they have to perform. So let's go ahead and talk about all of these. Okay, so for a lot of families, I mean, obviously, everybody has a first time getting their photos taken. But unless unless you're Gen Z or younger, most people didn't grow up with a camera in front of their face. They don't know how to pose themselves. They don't know their best angles, right? So most people need to be coached. And so if we go into it knowing that, then we're already helping them feel more at ease. I tell my clients multiple times from the time we start emailing each other that I am going to guide you every step of the way. I'm going to tell them exactly what to do with their hands. I'm going to tell them exactly what they need to do. So, next, another reason why families can feel awkward is that they're just not used to being observed and they don't know what to do with their body. Most people, again, aren't used to being watched closely, especially by a camera. So when there's a camera in front of their face, they suddenly become very vulnerable and very like, I don't know what I'm, how do I normally walk? I don't know. What am I doing? Right? They just become super hyper aware of their body. They become hyper aware of their smile, their posture. They start becoming very stiff. So, they might start having a really awkward smile. And awkwardness it's not a personality trait, right? Like it's just a lack of direction. So, some things I always ask moms if they have a side preference. I know I do. Like I prefer being photographed from my left side. That's just one thing that you can do to kind of build trust with portrait photographers. I mean, with your clients in portrait photography is kind of letting them know, like, I've got you. I will photograph you from the side that you prefer, right? It might seem kind of silly, but again, it's building that trust, and that trust is going to help people feel more at ease. So again, I ask mom if they have a side preference. And then I give clear prompts for posed photos. So again, like I tell them exactly where I want their hands. So for example, like I will tell them, Mom, I want you to touch your belly button to your husband's hip. Okay, that's very clear. She knows exactly where to move then. And then I'm going to tell dad, put one arm around your wife, and the other one is going to hold little Johnny's hand in front of you, or it's going to go in your pocket with your thumb out. I'm very specific, and I tell them exactly what to do. I don't tell them like, okay, just get together. They're not going to know what to do. So I am the expert, and I want them to trust that I know how to pose them, right? So I set up the scene, and another thing that people do, and that I've done before, is you can even draw poses ahead of time. If you know exactly how many people are going to be in there, you can sketch little stick figures and say, okay, what if mom's here? What if dad's here? And kids are here? That's an awesome approach. Okay. Next, families can feel a lot of pressure for the session to go well, right? Um, they can feel like kids need to behave, and that's stressful. They can feel like we paid a lot of money for this and want good photos, which is totally natural, right? In my pre-session email, I always let parents know that kids feed off of parents' stress. They can feel the stress, and they are going to feed off of whatever that energy is. So I always encourage them to listen to their favorite music on the way to our session in the car. And I always remind them that tension is what will break your session. Like, and I'm very firm about this, that if anybody comes to your session in a bad mood, it will show in your photos because it does. So I remind them of this many times ahead of time, that like, again, a bad mood will ruin your photos. So just do everything you can to stay positive. And I let them know that photos will turn out a million times better if they can just have fun, if they can just let go and just have fun with their people. And that 90% of the session, I also let them know that most of the session, you're not even going to be looking at me. I'm going to be moving around. You're going to be loving on your people, and you're going to be smiling with your people. You're going to be playing with them. And so I let them know all of this ahead of time. I let them know what to expect. Um, I also remind them that unless kids are in danger, like you, we're not raising our voices to the kids. This is gonna be a fun experience, because the thing that kills the photo experience is if somebody's getting mad, if someone's getting yelled at, if someone's in trouble, right? That will kill the vibe of the session. And I also tell dads and grandpas, or whatever men are coming, that they will make or break a session. A fun dad or a fun grandpa will make or break your session. I'm sorry, a fun dad or grandpa will make a session. And I know that's a lot of pressure to sometimes put on dads, but dads can sometimes get a bad rap that they're grumpy and they hate photos, which is fair. They mostly do. But when they're in a good mood, it will make your photos a million times better. So I do call them out. I always joke with them that I'm like, listen, you can hate photo day, but I need you to act like you don't hate photo day. Whatever is going on up here, that better not show on your face, you know? There was one time that I had a family who I could hear them yelling at each other from the parking lot. And they walked up, and I was like, this is so awkward. These photos are going to be so uncomfortable. And they were. You could tell that they were very mad at each other. They didn't want to be next to each other. Everything just felt very forced. So, I let people know ahead of time that will ruin your session. I also have in my contract, I have a clause in my contract that says that everybody will arrive in a good mood. That's how important it is for people to come in a happy mood. Um, Again, I know parents oftentimes want, like, they feel that pressure for the session to go well, which is why I also match kids' energy. And this one's really important. If kids are shy, then I bend down on their level and I ask them their names and I ask them how old they are and I match my tone of voice to their energy. If they're quiet and they're a little bit reserved, then I'm going to approach them a little quiet and a little reserved. I'm not going to be boisterous and crazy. It's just going to freak them out, right? But if they're rambunctious and they're like ready to go, then I'm like, let's take this energy and let's get started. So it's really important to match kids' energy, right? I also tell parents this that I'm not above bribing. So I let kids know that I have stickers in my backpack that they get to choose at the end if they can be super good listeners. So you can totally bribe with stickers. Parents don't always love when you bribe with candy. I let them make that decision. I let them know that great bribe candy that they can give them are Smarties or marshmallows because they're just tiny little things that they can pop in their mouth real quick, eat it. Their mouths don't get weird colors. It's not messy. It's like one little candy every once in a while if they need a little boost, right? So that's how I approach that. Okay, another reason families can feel awkward is that they just don't know you yet, right? So we need to give them a reason to trust us. And if you're grandparents, this is bonus. Oh, this is a grandparent photo here in front of us. It's a bonus because grandkids already want to play with you, right? But if families don't know me yet, then they're already going to feel a little bit reserved, right? But hopefully they've done their research and they've made sure that they like your photography style. Hopefully, maybe they've followed you on social media, which is, side note, why it's so important to post on social media because then people feel like they already kind of know you and have a sense of who you are and what you do in sessions and how you run your business and things like that. But it's always a good idea to not keep it strictly about photos when you're talking with clients. You want to talk to them on a human level. A lot of times in inquiries, if somebody is like, I just had a baby and I'd love to have you come photograph our family. I'm like, oh my gosh, congratulations. Like, how are you feeling? Like, how are they sleeping? Like, I'm gonna talk a little bit about something other than photos so that they can get to know me on a human level. Because when you feel connected with someone, you're going to naturally just feel more comfortable with them. So that's why it's, again, important to share on social media because then your clients will feel like they already know you. But if you're a grandparent and you're about to photograph your grandkids, this part makes it easy. There was actually a session just this week that the little girl had a brace on her arm and my daughter just broke her arm last week, so she's in a cast. And so when I got there, she said, "I saw that your daughter has also recently hurt her arm and she's in a cast." And so we were immediately able to connect on that level. I was able to talk to her daughter about her arm and how cool it was to get x-rays and see her bones and all of these things. So it immediately like put them at ease. They could trust me. I'm not just a random person coming to their house, which I mean I am. But you're able to connect on that human level. So, more of why families can feel awkward. They can feel like they have to perform. Um, Again, in pre-session emails, I let them know multiple times that I am here to guide them every step of the way. Um, that the best photos are the ones that are that they can genuinely play and laugh together and whatever that looks like for them. If a family feels awkward, it's not because they're bad in front of a camera, it's just because they haven't been guided yet. When in reality, 90% of a session is playing and loving on your family, which really ultimately should not feel performative. And I let them know that a lot of the session is going to be just if you can love on your family and connect with them, that is going to take the awkwardness out of the equation because I'm just standing here taking photos of your family loving on each other, and that's what it should feel like. Um, our job isn't to take photos. It's really meant to just remove that awkwardness by giving direction, creating movement, and building that trust. Okay, now we're going to talk about getting kids to cooperate. And this is always kind of a gamble, right? Kids are unpredictable. They are nothing if not unpredictable, right? Um, but really, like the the best advice is to stop trying to control the kids and you're going to engage with them instead. That's going to look like talking to kids when they first arrive. You're going to give them jobs. You're going to turn directions into games, and you're going to let them move instead of forcing stillness. So, first, talking to kids when they first arrive. I talked about it earlier, but when I first meet a family, first will already know kind of what their temperament is, if they're shy, if they're excitable, all of these things. But I am going to match, again, I'm going to match that energy with whatever that looks like. Um, if they're quiet, I'm gonna bend down and talk to them in a very calming voice. I'm going to ask them questions about themselves. Um, and if they're nervous, then I'm not gonna start with individual photos. I'm gonna let them stay cl nice and close to mom and dad, and I'm gonna get those photos first. And then once they start warming up, that's when I can let them do their own thing and get photos of them. If they're excitable, you can pump them up and you can get them really excited, but then you also kind of have to rein them in a little bit. So you have to remind them that we have to get the boring, smiling photos first, and then we get to do fun games. With excitable kids, I always do that one first because eventually they're gonna want to play, which is fantastic and fine. But I have to make sure that we're gonna get smiling photos first. And that's when I remind them of the stickers in my backpack. If they can be good listeners, they get to choose a sticker at the end. And then if mom or dad came with a little candy bribe, that's a good time to remind them of that too, if you need to rein kids in a little bit. Okay. Giving them jobs. Okay. This is a very great way to get kids to buy in to photos. Especially with big siblings, with little siblings. A lot of times I'll have them come stand by me and I'll say, help make them laugh. Can you do something super silly? Or can you make up a silly dance for them so that they can look this way and laugh, right? So I'm giving big kids jobs. Um, a lot of times, or I'll say, your job is to give mom and dad lots of tickles when I count to three. Or your special job for this photo is going to be to whisper something really, really silly in mom's ear. Or your job is going to be to lay your head on mom's lap and I want you to pretend to be asleep. Okay, so we're giving them jobs. Kids love to have jobs. I'm sure you all know. I'm sure you've all been around kids, but kids love to have a job. And this allows them to buy into the idea of getting their photos taken. Okay, next is turn directions into games. This one I love. I always do these. Um, Things like in this particular photo, I have mom and dad standing nice and close to each other, and I tell the kids to just run in circles around mom and dad. First of all, it gets some energy out. They think it's hilarious. They're like playing tag, but I just make sure that their circle is nice and close to mom and dad, and I'm like, go for it. Just run around. Um, so I do that one. A lot of times I'll do. Um, let's see. I'll have mom and dad stand next to each other, and then kids will stand over by me, and then I'll say on the count of three, I want you to run super fast and give mom and dad lots of tickles. Right? So these are all games that they want to cooperate in. And sometimes if a kid isn't feeling a game, that's okay. Like sometimes their kids aren't feeling games, and that then you're just gonna get a lot of like snuggly, lovey photos, and that's fine. Sometimes I'll have mom and dad throw a blanket or like a big white sheet. I'll have them like throw it up in the air and then I'll have kids run underneath it. So these are directions that I'm going to turn into games. Or the other one that I really love is if they're all snuggled up together or sitting or standing, I'll say on the count of three, I want you to look at the person with the stinkiest feet. And everybody wants to laugh like, "Oh my gosh, me, I don't have stinky feet." Or on the count of three, I want you to look at the person who is the pickiest eater. Or on the count of three, I want you to look at the person who has the messiest room, or whatever that may be, right? So these are things that you can turn into games and to get like genuine smiles. Um, and then also like if there's older kids, potty humor is always a winner. Look at the person who has the stinkiest farts, or things like that. So again, just more ways for kids to buy into the process. All right. Letting them move instead of forcing stillness. This kind of ties in with games. Um, because kids, they're just not gonna stand still. They're not gonna sit still, but for a few photos. So you have to find ways to get photos of them still kind of doing something, some sort of action, right? Because this also is what's gonna give you genuine smiles, right? We're not just getting frozen plastered on smiles on our face. That's not special, right? I mean, of course, we always want to get a couple of those, but that's not what is going to make you stand out as a photographer. So things like having kids go pick flowers and bringing them back to mom, or walking in a line together, holding hands, or having kids swung between mom and dad, right? Playing a game of follow the leader, where everybody's holding hands like little elephants walking across your frame, right? If they're at home, I'll have them choose an activity like reading a book, playing a game, playing with a pet, or jumping or dancing, things that they already like to do. Because kids respond to play, and you'll get them to feel more comfortable when they get to do that, when they get to play. Although I will usually have them try to do these games the second half of the session, so that it doesn't get too wheels off from the get-go. So that's just a little tidbit. All right. Let's talk about posing that doesn't feel stiff. Because natural photos do start with posing. And I do get posy photos first because a lot of times that's what people want for a Christmas card or grandparents or something like that, where everybody is smiling at the camera and looking, right? We don't want to ignore that. That is an important one, but that's not all that we want. That's not exactly going to evoke the emotion that we necessarily want, right? So I will start with a base pose. I always start with smiling photos, right? Again, I think I said this earlier, but usually it'll be something like mom's belly button is going to touch dad's hip. So they're in nice and close, right? And then I'll arrange kids around holding hands or in the front or somebody is being held. Um, and then once I get that photo, everybody's smiling, then I'm going to add some sort of interaction. Okay. I'm going to add that once we get smiles and then I'm going to tell them this time, I don't want you to look at me. I want you to stay exactly where you are. But this time I want you to look at mom. I want you to look at dad. I want you guys to look at each other. I want you guys to laugh and I want you to smile at each other. But don't look at me. And then I'm going to be moving my feet. I'm going to be moving around at different angles and getting photos. Um, and then once they're doing the smiley stuff, then I'm going to add a movement. I'm going to say, Mom, this time I want you to really snuggle with little Caroline. I want you to snuggle her real close. And Dad, I want you to twirl little Susie, right? So I'm going to add some movement, but I'm not moving them. I'm not changing the pose. It all stays in that same foundational pose at first, right? Um, or I'll have them like dip a kid upside down or something like that. So we start with a base pose and then we have an interaction, which usually looks like smiling or laughing. And then I'm going to have them actually do something in that same pose. So we're not removing posing, we're just disguising it as something a little bit more fun. All right, now we're going to talk about directing parents. And this one can be tough because um, we want to we want to say just be natural. Just smile at each other. Just be natural. But that's actually like the worst directions we can give. Because you're like, well, there's actually nothing natural about having a camera in front of my face. So now I don't know what to do. Um, but parents want to be told what to do. They don't want to be left guessing. So that's why we want to give them very specific directions. A lot of photographers struggle with directing parents because it can sometimes feel bossy. I know that I did at first. I struggled being like, oh, well, is it okay? Like, do you feel okay about this? Can you do this? Like, no. we are the professional, we're the expert, and this is actually is what's going to give our clients trust, and they're going to realize that we're confident in what we're telling them to do. And so they're not going to feel like you're being bossy. They're going to think, "Oh, wow, she knows exactly what she's doing. She knows what looks good, and I'm going to do exactly what she tells me to do." So really you're just setting up the scene for our clients to trust you and to feel more comfortable and to feel confident that what you're doing is gonna work, right? Instead of let's see, hold on, what was I gonna say now? There we go. Okay. Instead of specifics like, Mom, look at me, like, well, okay, uh, I take that back. Let me go back a little bit. The parents want to be told what to do instead of left guessing, and our tone of voice also matters, right? So when we say, um, if we keep it super casual and upbeat, then that's also going to set the tone for the session. If things start going wheels off, which plenty of times it will. Sometimes it's just going to be wheels off with kids, right? But it is your job to stay cool, calm, and collected. Again, whatever is going on up here better not show right here, right? If things are going crazy, we're still cool. We've got this. It's fine. We're going to keep it casual. We're going to keep it upbeat, even if we're feeling frustrated, even if it's feeling like super chaotic, you're setting the tone for your session. I've had plenty of those wheels off sessions, but again, up to us to like rein it back in, okay? And our tone of voice is going to matter, right? Also, having confidence is super important. So if something isn't working, don't be afraid to bail. Like it's fine. If there are so many times where I'll be like, okay, let's try this, let's do this, and it's just like maybe a kid just isn't feeling it, it's okay to just say, never mind, moving on, right? I always say that like we're never going to force kids to do anything that's going to cause them to melt down because then you're just getting diminished returns at that point. Once a kid starts like really, really pushing back, then it's time to move on, right? Um, a lot of times I'll say things like, this is gonna feel super weird, but I promise it's gonna look amazing. Um, so have that confidence, right? And it's okay to try something, and if it doesn't work, again, you can bail and move on. But your confidence is what's gonna be the most important part, right? There was a time that I had a family and I wanted the little boy to be up on the husband's shoulders, and the mom and the dad were like, "Oh, I love that idea. He loves going up on shoulders." And so they pop him up. I get like maybe two photos, and all of a sudden he's like, "I want down. I don't like this." And the parents are like, "No, no, no, we're on like a couple more. Stay up there. It's okay." And the second a kid is like, "I want down," I'm like, let's get him down because we're not going to turn this into a negative experience. Because again, the second kids start feeling like they're doing things that don't feel good for them, then like you're going to get diminished returns. And I'm not saying that like kids run the session, not at all. You just want to make sure that kids are buying in. Okay. So next we'll talk about this is kind of the bread and butter of photography for me is creating emotional moments because this is what's going to make you stand out. This is the heart of your style, and this is what, again, is going to make clients or other people feel drawn to your work. Emotion doesn't come from posing; it comes from the connection, and we already talked about how the being natural and a connection doesn't just happen naturally. It's something that we, as the photographer, are creating space for. Um, so so things that I do, um, so things that I do to create emotional moments, some little prompts will be like, I want you to tell mom your favorite thing about her. Um, and then I'll say, now let's have mom tell you her favorite thing about you. And that's going to create like just a sweet smile. It might be something funny, it might be something tender, but it's going to evoke some sort of reaction, right? Sometimes I'll say, now I want you to do a big group family hug and I want you to be super, super tight and really squeeze. And I'm pretty sure that's what I had them do here, which is why she's probably like, oh my gosh, you're squeezing the life out of me. But it turned out to be a really sweet, cute moment. Again, we'll do like go give dad lots of tickles, right? Um, or whisper a silly sound in dad's ear. All of these things, be ready because you're going to get some sort of laugh. You're going to get some sort of fun reaction. Um, and then this is where you really want to refer back to your questionnaire about what they want captured. So these emotional moments, this is where you can really tie in the sweetness of each family's season of life. Um, and most families will say that they want photos of their family looking happy, and that is what they want. Um, and that's how we provide this to them is by giving them little excuses to just like love on their kids. And that's what's going to show like their connection and their happiness, right? All right, next, let's talk about how emotion happens when people forget about the camera. When people are focused on the camera, that's when they're going to feel like they're posing. I'm not asking them to look happy. I'm giving them something that is going to make them feel happy. And that's what we're ultimately capturing. One thing that's important to note is that emotion can happen and often does happen in the in-between moments. So always, always, always be ready. Um, Sometimes you're gonna photograph, you might photograph mom and one kid, and dad and the other kid could be behind you, and he's just tossing a kid up into the air. Those are moments that you're gonna want to turn around and capture, right? It's not something you planned for, but just be aware of all of the little moments that are happening in between, like prompts and in between the moments that you didn't plan for. Again, emotion is often in the in-between moments. A lot of times they will, it's the things to look for is the laugh after a prompt, right? Sometimes it takes a second or two for them to like actually get it, kind of like the on the count of three, look at everybody, look at the person who has the stinkiest socks, right? So if once you do a couple of those and they get it, then that's when the genuine laugh and like the laughter and the the smiles are gonna emerge. Sometimes like a lingering hug can lead to something like stroking hair or something just really, really sweet that you want to be ready for. Or sometimes you want to, something that I always really try and capture are glances between parents because a lot of times during a session you'll catch a glance between parents that kind of says like, look at the life that we built together, right? And those are the kinds of things that you want to be ready for and that you want to capture because those are going to be the really, really special photos for families. Um, just a tip is to keep shooting after you think the moment is done. After you think that they're done laughing, just stay an extra minute, another minute or so because you'll likely capture something really good. All right. Next is embrace imperfection and give them permission to let go. Um, so embracing perfection, embracing imperfection can look like kids climbing on their parents. It can look like people just not even looking at the camera. It can look like kids being silly. Sometimes I really, really, really love to get just a quick photo of a kid's personality. And it's not necessarily going to be a smiling one. It could be them like twirling or like just making a silly face. Sometimes those can be really, really special too. Sometimes, and sometimes kids are going to need a minute. Sometimes maybe they just need to come back to center and like gather themselves, and that's okay, right? But because sometimes that can create a really sweet moment too, especially like in this photo, in their presentation, this little boy he just needed a minute, and that's perfectly fine. Obviously, like don't get all up in their business when when that's happening because that can backfire. But if you stand back and just snap a quick picture, it can be really, really meaningful. I also let parents know from the beginning that it's okay to not be perfect. In fact, I don't want perfection. The most important thing is them just being together because it lowers their expectations. And I'm not saying that in like a don't expect much out of this session. I say that in so that they know that they don't have to be performative. Um, it also builds trust because they know that what I'm going to provide is something special, right? They don't, if that's not their job, that's my job. And it also opens the door for real and raw moments. Okay, almost done here, guys. All right, next is slow down when the connection happens. When a moment happens, just don't rush it. When something's happening organically, just let it unfold. It's kind of, it ends up being very documentary, right? You're capturing these little details that you weren't expecting. Maybe they weren't expecting it. So don't rush it. Don't say, okay, moving on to the next thing. Just kind of like take a minute and let it unfold in front of you. If the connection is happening, then stay there a little bit longer than you think you should because something special is likely going to come out of it. An emotion looks different for every family. Not every family is loud and playful. Again, this is why another plug for the questionnaire, because if you go into a session thinking that you're going to get these big, boisterous, laughing photos, and that's just not them, then you're going to be scrambling and you might be disappointed. Some families are just more quiet, they're a little bit more gentle, they're a little bit more reserved, and knowing that means that you're going to pose them a little bit differently. You're going to do more snuggles, you're going to do more hand holding, you're going to do more tight-knit shots, right? Connection doesn't always look like laughter. Sometimes it can just look like stillness, like a child's head on their mom's shoulder, or just a sweet little hug, or touching touching their hair, or hand holding. These are some of the small details to really pay attention to because they're really, really special to parents, especially to moms. And then emotional moments photograph better than perfect smiles. I always say that connection over perfection every single day of the week. Emotion is what tells a story, and this is what is going to invoke memories for parents in the long run, and that's exactly what they want. So, oh, I just lost one thing. Okay. So again, yes, emotion tells a story, and that's what parents are going to look back on and remember their season of life. And ultimately, that's exactly what families want, and that's really what family photography is about. All right, so our key takeaways, kids need play. We have to incorporate some play. Parents need very specific direction. They want direction. Posing is structure, not stiffness. And emotion is created and it's not captured by accident. So that we are creating the space for the emotion to happen. All right. Now, does anybody have any questions for me?
Carolyn, right off the bat, let's get technical. Can you give her some ideas of what kind of lens you're using on these inside shoots?
Yeah, so I a 35 just lives on my camera. I very rarely
Okay.
will take that off. If I'm doing outdoor, maybe I would do a 50, but I use 35 for everything, especially
Oh,
indoor.
okay.
Yeah.
That makes it real easy.
Yeah.
All right. Gail's question is if you have, oh, I love this. Gail's question is if you have three or more kids, how do you keep them from scattering in all directions?
Yeah, that is a very valid question. So again, when you have the three kids, I'm using the bribes, right? I am reminding them that they get to use stickers, but we have to stay close to mom and dad. And here's what we're gonna do. But also with that if you have three kids, that means you're moving fast. You're going from your height, you're keeping them together. You're saying, okay, mom, you're gonna hold this kid's hand, dad's gonna hold this kid, and this one's gonna be in the middle. You're really keeping them in the same general area by using those games, and we're it's that's where it's going to be really important for you to hold their attention. But that's where games is going to be like really important.
Debbie's question is any tips for a family with teens who really don't want to participate?
Yep, I have those all the time. So the good thing about teens is that you don't have to have them buy into games. You don't have to think on your feet. With these, I am very like I let them know at the very beginning, like, listen, I get photos are really uncomfortable. They're awkward sometimes, and I let them know how important photos are for their mom. I kind of like, I don't guilt them. Okay, I'm not gonna
Okay.
guilt them, but I do let them, I do remind everybody that these are super important for mom. So like, we're all just gonna like, we're gonna get it done and it's gonna be mostly painless, but it's gonna be a high reward for your mom. And so I do kind of remind them that like, don't be grumpy because it's for your mom, and if you're grumpy it's going to be more uncomfortable for you. So with teens, a lot of times in terms of like posing, I don't make it like I'm not going to make anybody hold hands. A lot of times I'll do, we'll do like the standing family photo. A lot of times I'll do a lot of walking photos, where everybody just kind of stays in one line and you're walking all together. Nobody has to hold hands, no one has to twirl. But I'll do make sure that we do sibling photos, photos with teens with their mom, teens with their dad. And then like individual too. So I try to make it pretty straightforward with them because like they're ready to get out of there.
Okay. I'm going to build on Andy's question. His statement is her indoor lighting is amazing, but and he has no idea how you do it. So, can you kind of give us an insight on what kind of stuff are you bringing to people's homes? What kind of
Yeah, so
what's your setup?
yeah, so actually I don't bring anything. I have lights, but I use those in studios with models. I don't bring them to people's houses. So what I do ahead of time is I ask people for photos of their house or to send me a video of their house so that I can get an idea of like where some interesting spots may be. And I also let them know that that no matter where I place them, it's going to be because of lighting. So just because you have one spot in your house that you love so much, the lighting just may not work. And so I'm strategically placing them in spots that are in front of a window or in a like in a stairwell or somewhere that's going to be good light. And I let them know that it may be an unconventional spot, but it's going to make them unique. It's going to make it cool and it's going to give you really beautiful lighting. So I know some people that do bring a light, but I just don't, especially with kids. I'm like, that's just an accident waiting to happen. And so I just
Mhm.
let them know that we may be shooting in an interesting spot, but it just will give the photos more character. And then again with like the sketching, if I ask for a video or photos of someone's house, I will sketch like poses in a specific spot so that I have something to refer back to.
Okay, so for all these people in this room, I just have to say, Cheyenne, you shared your bag of tricks with all of us. I was just like, okay, maybe I could give families a try, and then I'm like, no, I'm going to stick to birds. But you gave me some really cool insight, and I'm gonna share the chat with you. I was not alone in the very we're fans of yours. So thank you for coming in and sharing. In fact, halfway through this, I texted a friend who jumped on and I said, "You need to be in this room. I swear to you, she's doing all the things that you need to know." So she was real cute. She's like, "Okay, can you get her to start over?" Your person, and I said, "It's going to be on YouTube on
There you
Friday."
go.
But
That's right. You can catch it again.
yes. Thank you so much,
Thank
Cheyenne,
you
for
so
doing
much. And thank
this.
you for the participation. Thank you for all the kind words. I'm now looking through the chat and it's just so genuine and so kind. Thank you so
Prayers.
much for having me. This was so fun. This was so
Oh,
fun.
good. Good. Well, maybe we will I'll have to come up with something more complicated. Like how do you get the grumpy husbands? Can you do a whole hour on getting the grumpy husbands to
Oh,
participate?
I
Because
can speak for an hour on how to get grumpy husbands on board.
and the guys in the room are like, "Hey, yeah, we're looking right at you guys." All
100%.
right, let me go ahead and close out this session, but thank you, Cheyenne, for sharing your time with us tonight. So, all right, next week, Lawrence Lederman will be here to share his presentation, Landscape Photography, Night Skies, Dramatic Light, and Storytelling. So, y'all have a nice night, and we'll see you next week.